Hello everyone. So I didn't do a YouTube video in a while. Last time that I uploaded to YouTube was a year ago. So instead of doing a weird coming back video, I decided to do a sketchbook tour instead. I just finished my sketchbook that took me 3 years to complete. I never did a drawing sketchbook tour on my YouTube channel. Mostly it was my watercolor paintings, but drawing is also very important. And these are the only purely drawing sketchbooks that I completed. I started the orange one in 2018 and finished in 2020, and the white one was 2020 until now, 2023. So this is 5 years of my drawing practice. So before I start, I wanted to just say that I never drew as much as I painted. You're gonna see a lot of drawings that are level kindergarten. Drawing skill is very hard for me personally. So I started to paint much sooner than I started to be serious with drawing. I'm painting since 2010. I did draw from time to time. I didn't keep a sketchbook. Most of the portrait works that I did before was not quite freehand drawing. Some of it were, but I used a lot of grids and other measuring methods to be precise. I just couldn't rely on freehanding everything so that it looks appropriately realistic. Everything looked wrong at first. I'm not the type of person who is easily motivated to do something when I don't see returns quite early on. At some point, I said to myself, this is too hard, I'm not gonna do it, I'm just gonna use grids and I'm just gonna paint. I even convinced myself that that's okay, you can do art without a drawing skill. But when I look at it now, it was just lots of insecurities and excuses not to work on something. I can explain why. Generally, painting in watercolor, there's a lot of factors that go into it that can make your art look much better. There's color, there's texture, there's a lot of these effects that watercolor do. I can do a pretty great job and create beautiful paintings with total beginners during a watercolor workshop. It's a medium that will inspire you. Immediately when you start to paint, you get some results, you get something back. With drawing, it's different. You are getting very harsh feedback according to your level of this skill. I don't think many people can handle that because this usually starts as a hobby. And I think this was the biggest mistake of my artistic life, to give in to my insecurities and rely on those kind of methods and not start to freehand everything from the very start and keep the drawing sketchbook before trying to develop the painting skill. I'm not proud of it, but I'm saying this because I see a lot of people who suffer from these insecurities. I see them on my workshops. They rather let me do the sketch than sketch themselves. And the same on my Patreon. People really request those sketches to be involved with the video lesson, but I always try to recommend that you get serious about drawing because that's no long-term strategy to work from a pre-made sketch. To sum it up, drawing takes a lot of time. It has a very difficult, ugly face at first, where everything looks not good. That can be difficult to handle, but take me with a grain of salt. For me personally, drawing is much more difficult and requires a lot more imagination than painting does. With all of that, let's do the actual tour so that you can see how I progressed from the point when I actually decided to start working on this skill, stopped avoiding it, and prepared myself mentally to be able to handle the many ugly looking sketches and accept them as my own. So let's do the orange first. That was the first one. It's not called Perfect Book, it's called Sketchbook. I must have seen that somewhere, but it resonated, obviously. So I started with some very loose sketches of my cat, and I think I tested some gouache. I still have the Schminky gouache set. I should do something with it because it was very expensive and I almost never use gouache in my works. I found out that in this paper, this is I think 160 or something, the gouache still works, watercolor would not, but gouache is really nice medium to add to your sketchbook. So this was one of the first drawings. I did the entire spread and then covered with some gouache, and I think I used that black brush pen for the hair. This was some personal drawing challenge, I think 10 days or 7 days, I don't know. I just tried different styles and usually I just went to Pinterest to find references for the sketches. These were some poses. These were very quick, like 2 minutes. This was some still life, very lame, and my drawing tools, and that was self-portrait. I think I took a course somewhere on Skillshare probably and tried to do different marks. A lot of drawing classes have that and it can help, but in the end I just don't use it. I just do it very intuitively when I hatch. My hatching has no direction, no order. This was just plain with some colored pencils and maybe with markers. These two, I think I had fun using that, and there was markers, colored pencils. I think these were Pinterest photos that I drew from. More Pinterest studies in just colored pencils. For a while, colored pencils, these soft ones, were my favorite medium to draw with. Also from a Pinterest photo, this was self-portrait. That's how I felt at some point. This was horrible, but I think the sketch was originally with just a graphite pencil. It didn't turn out well, so I decided to just go crazy and wild with markers and do whatever really crazy sketch. This is the worst spread of the entire sketchbook. I don't know what I was trying. I was trying something. I think back then I admired a lot of illustrators, both on YouTube and Instagram, and I just wanted to try out their style a little bit. It never worked for me though. This was just a realistic sketch from a Pinterest photo. That one I liked. That one turned out quite accurate. And this, I think, was portrait of an illustrator. I don't remember her name, but I was listening to an interview with her and I really liked one of her photos, I think. These were studies of male portraits. It wasn't my thing back then. I specifically remember that some of my followers, either on YouTube or on Instagram, were requesting male portraits because they were kind of complaining about me always drawing females. So I tried to draw some guys, but I didn't really like it. I didn't care enough to make the drawing look good. This was the only one that I found interesting enough to paint. So more girls. I did Instagram live streams back then. I think it was every single day or every other day when I just logged in and sketched one page or one face or something live. That was a phase that I went through and I don't do that anymore. Maybe I should. But these two I like. It was with colored pencils. I tried to stylize really hard. I didn't feel like painting any of them in the end. This was a quick one. Quick drawing that I never finished. The sketch was nice with colored pencils, but I just wanted to finish it with brush pen. But with the brush pen, I never had the proper technique to make it look interesting. These were both streamed on Instagram, and these were also. This one I quite like. It was one of the more successful attempts. And I think I also streamed these. I used a bit of gouache for these. Maybe it's good to remark that I was some pages into the sketchbook, started to feel a little bit confident, started to feel a little bit of that, like I can rely on myself. I thought the live stream would also help me with that. And for a while, it was nice. It was really helping me to just spontaneously draw. Then I stopped again. I like these two sketches. They were kind of boring in just colored pencils, so I tried to stylize with gouache and markers, or these were micron fine liners. Colored pencils, I think it was also live stream, both of these guy portraits for a change. Yeah, both live streamed, not the best studies, but this I like. It is not so realistic, but it has a vibe. This one is boring. More attempts at stylization and even like change of proportions. Even though these are not studies that I show you with pride, I think that you can see clearly that it takes a lot of experimentation in finding something that you really feel like it's natural for you and that you are really interested enough in that you can then go and create a larger painting. So it takes a lot of crazy and not so great looking sketches to not only find what you like, but what you don't like as well. So after finishing this one, I was sure that fantasy type of art is not going to be my thing. Realistic study, or an attempt at realistic study. I didn't use Blender. I see a lot of crazy hatching that doesn't look great. And this was just, we were watching some anime and I really wanted to draw this character. I don't even know her name anymore. I think this was supposed to be Lily Collins' study and Pinterest reference. So these are studies of my husband. He posed for me for this one, and well, he didn't know I was drawing him, but the main idea, I did an Inktober sketch of this one a couple of years back. It was like what my husband is actually doing. He's playing a lot of video games and what my husband thinks he's doing. So I'm assuming that by playing these video games, you kind of get to feel like you're in shoes of that character. So this is him as some crazy sorcerer, but I like that sketch. That was one of those pieces that I think were more successful that came out of this experimentation. These were all sketches, just like brainstorming what I'm gonna do for Inktober prompts. They're very quick, not careful at all. And this also. I'm so late, we're referring for me being a couple of sketches behind the Inktober prompt list. I no longer do Inktober, but I was religious about it for a couple of years back then. More Inktober sketches. This was not an Inktober sketch, or was it? I can't remember. Might have been. This was a sketch from a photo on Pinterest. This was another attempt at stylization, doing some sort of children's illustration. Roses. I think this was some sort of tutorial. I don't know if that is on my Patreon. Okay, we were traveling to UK and these were sketches of people on a plane, and this was a sketch of my cousin. Turned out quite well, I recognize her, and some attempt at trying to make it look more stylized. A hand study. Hands is something that I never drew enough of. 15 and 8-minute studies of my husband. He was posing live for me. We are at 2019. That was already 1 year into my more serious drawing practice. This is my daughter, 15 minutes. This one looks like her, more or less, but this didn't turn out so well. This was a more difficult angle to handle for me live during a very specific short time frame. Live study of my cat. This was just, I think, made up study. This is my uncle, 15 minutes live sketch, and also live sketch of my grandmother. This is very precious when I just discovered it because she passed on 3 months ago. This is the sketch that is very precious for me. Another study of my husband playing something on his phone. And my cousin, I think this was live. My daughter that doesn't look like her at all, and some made up sketches. Inktober prompts for 2019. Back then, I only did a couple of these, so I think I finished at 22. Yes, I remember that. I finished here. No, 23. Ancient, I did. From this sketch, I did a painting, but from 24, I didn't finish the rest. Too bad, because I had prepared fun things to tackle. This was my daughter wearing a really large coat of mine. She was very small. This was called Ride, and that was my cat always trying to get a ride on my husband's back. And a couple of more prompts that I didn't get to paint. Studies, 2 from photos, 1. Again, my husband, he's the one person that never complains when I try to draw him. He's just sitting quietly and lets me do my thing. Everybody else protests. I was probably gonna do some brainstorming about painting ideas. Oh, and this was when pandemic hit us in 2020. So I was trying to do some paintings with the mask on, and these flowers, they were supposed to be a metaphor for the infectious disease. So that was very first week or 2 in March 2020. But I only did 1 painting. I only painted this one. These were more attempts to stylize. They're not so bad. Didn't feel so pushed as when I try to add elements to my paintings that don't fit in there just for the sakes of stylization. Like here. Maybe it would make an interesting painting if I did it a little better. Probably you know this reference because a bunch of painters painted it and drew it. I see it everywhere, but I found the photo on Pinterest, so I wanted to give it a try. In the colored pencils, stylized like this, I find it kind of nice. It's very dynamic. This one I like. I don't know why I never painted this. This one feels so simple, maybe boring at first, but I like it. There's something about it. I don't know, both of these I would happily paint right now. This is not a bad idea. I'm glad that we are touring this old sketchbook. Some more ideas, but you can see that I'm following some sort of flowery stylization chain. Back then I thought that I should create a series that have more or less one topic, and that is not a bad way to approach the practice. Some will be better, some will be worse, but something good can come out of this. It's better than try just one idea, is to grab that idea and make a series out of it. Spinning that idea at least 7 times. We're back to blue color pencil. I don't hate these sketches. I used Pinterest references for all of these. And this is my practice from Lumi's book, anatomy book that I bought probably in 2020. Just me redrawing the faces that are in the book. That is not a bad way to practice the drawing skills, is try to redraw. More stylizations that definitely look weird. Okay, so this one is just a redraw of somebody else's art, but for the life of me I can't find the name of the artist, otherwise I would have mentioned it here. It was a very nice drawing, and what I wanted to achieve trying to copy it is to find out how other artists use the hatching, because my lines were so chaotic. This has literally no order, so I was trying to make a sense of this. And it did help. It was so long ago, but I think that this was a reference photo that I tried to hatch and stylize according to what I learned here. It has a downside, this method. You sometimes end up doing drawings and paintings that look like the other painter's art, so I'm not too happy about that. When I find that out, it does happen because you also consume and see a lot of art around you, so you get influenced by it. I think the better way is to study from photos, but I learned something from copying different styles. These were photos, I think. Also tried to apply what I learned here, but they didn't turn out as well as this one. This one is very interesting. This was from a photo, but very much stylized, and I added numerous elements and a frame, and I kind of like that one. This was just me trying to invent some shading in a very weird way. We're approaching the last couple of pages of this sketchbook, which I'm really fond of. These are one of my favorites, both of these. I don't know what, I can't explain it, but there's just the atmosphere and the mood about it is what I like about it. And I tried to paint it and it didn't work. This one even more. And as simple as this motif looks, 2 swans, when I did this kind of playing around with some texture, these were actual attempts at creating texture with pencil. So at this point I started to play with backgrounds a little bit, not just focusing on like drawing the figure. This was something that pencil was missing for me. In pencil it's hard because there's just line. There's nothing to rely on, really. There's no color. You cannot hide your mistakes. They're all there. It's so incredibly honest. What I'm excited the most about is color and texture. So this was my way of trying to get some texture, if not color, texture and more dramatic tone into the drawings. I'm not saying this is perfect and ideal, but these were much less boring. So exciting to work on these than, let's say, here. Here I was obsessed, I remember it specifically, about creating my own style. We get obsessed by that. I see a lot of people searching for videos about your own style. There are so many classes about finding your own style. So I was like, okay, let's invent a new style. It's like you're searching for yourself. My way of trying to find my style was very analytic. I was very specific about it. We need to find what rules will my style have. And so I gathered a bunch of references, those drawings and paintings from the painters and illustrators that I really admire, that I like. There's something that sparks in their art for me and many others, and try to copy it and find what it is. Is it a specific way of drawing a nose or a specific way of hatching, to then try to make that specific thing incorporated into my own work. Disclaimer is it never worked for me, but it was a fun exercise. I'm not gonna pronounce it, but I put their Instagram here next to the drawing. These were some of my favorite drawings and paintings. Here, Kellogg's Loops, Ludwig, she's amazing. Her style has some really neat, very specific rules, and mine is so chaotic. And Lifey, she has such beautiful drawing. The faces that she draws, they stand out, you know, immediately that this is her drawing. So I was pretty enchanted by them for a while, until I discovered that this is not my thing. Then I calmed down and just followed my own path anyway. Conrad Rosette, that was another fascinating style that I just wanted to try how it works. Such a simple image like this one, such a simple image. What makes it so interesting? For me, this was like a bomb. I would put it on my wall. I don't know why some drawings and paintings have this effect on me, probably on others as well. The other girls were from a photo. This were photo study. This was also study of a photo. More photo studies. I painted this girl. It is even on my YouTube channel. And that's it. Sketchbook finished May 2020. These were the attempts of trying to create these two sketches that I really liked and make them into paintings, but these are half finished. It was really weird. It didn't work out. This kind of approach in art, to plan everything, to plan a color scheme, I don't think it's for me. When there's too much planning involved, I tend to lose the emotion. So that was painful to watch from time to time. I want to show you the other one that followed. This sketchbook is twice the size, the first one, and I filled it in 3 years, not 2. I still think that this kind of sketchbook can be filled in 1 year, but I took my sweet time. Sometimes I completely ignored it for months. This was a model that I had to follow, otherwise I would just give up on it. And that was, the good news is it's not magic, it's just work. And the bad news is that it's work, and you have to work on it. With some experience, finally, I moved on to do what I finished doing in that sketchbook, and that was stylizing my art, trying to find my style. The hatching is still very chaotic, but I try to be maybe more strategic about how I shade, how I place the line. I did some colored pencil touches from here and there, some patterns. At this point, I think I tried to make the page look more interesting. So I don't think sketchbook needs to be all about that to make a pretty page. Here, my energy was drawn already from too much effort. So I grabbed Loomis and I tried to redraw the studies from a book again, anatomic stuff. Eye studies, some animal eyes and horses. I think this was tutorial. These were planning of some Christmas cards. This was drawing from imagination. More Loomis. This was also tutorial explaining the values on a very simple subject. Study of noses. Now I have to say that all these studies I did now 2 weeks ago. This is a portrait of my brother and I added some noses because it was bothering me that some of these sketchbook pages were unfinished. I was running out of space and the new sketchbook didn't arrive, so I came back and finished the sketches here. I'm not gonna ever do that because as you go through the sketchbook you can't see the progress, because this is basically my current technique. This is the old stuff, so it is not so appropriate, I think. These were animal studies. I think I did a 10-day drawing challenge here. Day 3, day 5, day 4, some portraits, stylized portraits. 6 and 7, 30-minute sketches, 35-minute sketches from photos. Quite like these ones with colored pencils. The colored pencil was a good friend of mine because it was soft and it was my favorite material to draw with. These were also very high effort sketches and stylized also. I loved working on them, but this is something that it never lasts a long time. It's just like I go through a phase when I'm like super into it and I'm willing to spend 3 times the time that I actually have for my daily practice. It doesn't work long term, but it's a nice page. To play with all the patterns, I must have worked on this for 3 hours. Particularly, I like this portrait. Would like to maybe paint that face. 25-minute, these were profile tutorials, male and female, and these are more profiles. These are 3/4 portraits. I tried to do very realistic drawing of magnolia, and halfway through I gave up. This is 2/3 of a drawing. I never finished, I never will. Boring as hell. I don't know why bother. Some things are just not worth my time. Very detailed drawing of flowers is one of those things. It's not that I don't like them, but with paint, I can spontaneously paint the flowers very quickly while making it look more dreamlike and realistic. I don't really need all of the details, all of the nuances to tell the story. I love flowers, don't get me wrong. This precise approach to trying to execute this is just too much for me. Some more studies of portraits, and my little girl, I had a new baby, but by that time she just sketched something of her own. You will see that in different parts of my sketchbook, but I left it there because that's life. Here was 1, 2 and 3 point perspective that I explained. I think it was for a tutorial. Here is a swatch sheet of my colored pencils, polychromos and Caran d'Ache. I just kept it here. These are also polychromos, blues and greens. This was for tutorial. This sketch, this was fun. It was just a still life practice. In a fun, colorful style. More stylized portraits, none of them I like. This whole spread is weird. At this point I was thinking, what about patterns? They're nice, right? With patterns, the thing is, while I do like them, I do not like the type of work on a pattern that requires too much detailing, and they do require a lot of time. So I gave up on it. Return to the very quick portrait studies. This was a genuine watercolor plus color pencil study that I did back then. These were put here a couple of weeks ago when I was on a plane to Manchester. This was the only free page left in my sketchbook. So again, new technique and the old technique you can compare. This is the last time that I left some pages free, because it is not great to go back and put your new technique next to the old one. These were studies of my husband and my husband holding our little girl. More studies, I think these were from photos. Yeah. I tried to simplify my way of drawing here, and I think successfully, but it still felt a little bit too pressured. Still didn't feel like mine. Here I started to experiment with the contour, and that is one thing that actually sticks until today. I like the contour, but not quite like that. You will see in a couple of pages. This was a tutorial from Domestika. This was a tutorial that I tried to create, weird as it looks. And this was my first 100 hats challenge. You've seen this tour already because it's here on my YouTube channel. So these were the 100 hats. I followed the official 100 hats challenge prompt list, and my technique was pushed miles from where it was, only in 10 days. That is what is so great about this challenge. Here the style was basically still following the style of Ahmed Aldori. He had a very captivating style, so I wanted to try it, and I didn't have one of my own, so I tried to adopt this for the first couple of pages. But as the challenge progressed, I didn't have time to do such elaborate drawings in a style that is high effort for me, so I started to loosen up and I started to do my own thing. And by the end of this challenge, I already had a proven way to create a quick sketch. Here even more. Here is how I use the really harsh line that frames the silhouette. I use this in my sketches until today. This one was beautiful. It was one of my favorites. And here also. The lines are now a bit more loose. I use them sparingly, but when I do place a line, it is more with intention. These were some bonus sketches, I guess, just testing some liner pens. I did this for YouTube. It was a tutorial. YouTube, and I think on Patreon as well, but I'm not sure if I put it on Patreon. Here are some more studies. After this one, these studies were kind of lame. There are days when everything looks weird. You guess who this is, but very unsuccessful portrait from the film Emma. Very unsuccessful portrait. And this is my daughter, my older daughter. This is totally her, this is less her. The likeness, I still do have problems with that. More sketches. There's one free page that maybe I could use for something, but now I have an opinion about that, so I didn't. Some live sketches. My husband again, my patient model. This page mostly filled by my smallest daughter. This was a tutorial, you have it on Patreon. This is how proportions of the face are divided. It is based on Loomis actually. He has it very well explained in the book as well. So this was my Skillshare class. By this time, I created a whole Skillshare class on painting portraits and also drawing portraits. So I can't do a painting class when it comes to portraits without explaining how I go about drawing the portraits. You have it all there. I'm going to link the class down below in case that you want to try. There's a free trial if you yet didn't check out Skillshare. And I broke down the drawing of portrait in a very simplified way, in a way that works for me. I drew directly into this sketchbook. There are some tips of how to approach the sketching habit also more in detail. These were also, I think, either tutorial or live workshop demos on how to approach drawing a profile. Some nose studies. Eye studies. Eyes are difficult, guys, so difficult. This is me reimagining one of my older paintings, and I'm fully prepared to repaint this on a large canvas still. But the painting is on hold because I think I'm gonna use oils for it, and that's a new medium. I need to reserve some more time for this painting. This was initial sketch. I really like this kind of sketch. I wonder how it will turn out in color. This was also preparation for one of my larger paintings. I have it all on Patreon to work out the entire composition, to create a more detailed sketch and then do it in color on a larger watercolor canvas. This is preparation for another painting. In my watercolor sketchbook there is a watercolor sketch, but the larger painting still hasn't been finalized. It was a very great use of my sketchbook here when I was preparing these larger paintings. These were just some random sketches. Here, there was an idea that a girl in my classroom wanted to try, but she didn't know how to approach it. She wanted a portrait and then a ravens. We just quickly sketched two ways of placing it on a page, and then she picked this one. I think it turned out great. Too bad I can't show you the final result because I don't have it. These were sketches that I'm happy about. Very, very nice sketches. Might be worth to do a painting. This also belongs to the Skillshare class. There were some very simple exercises that I was explaining, and these pages are actually also scanned and are part of this class. This is the same as you saw before, but on every class or tutorial that I make, I draw this in real time, so this was for the Skillshare class as well. Simplification of different features of the face for the Skillshare class that I mentioned. There was a lot of drawing involved in the Skillshare class. This was me trying to explain how to use simple shapes to build the face. So how to combine the knowledge of the proportions with a very simple way of drawing this. From this on, I think it was just freehanding a lot of portraits. I might do 3 a day, 10-minute, 12-minute drawings. This one I did recently because also there was some paper left. This is a lead actor from Peaky Blinders. This looks like him, this doesn't look like him. Mouth studies, and I have to say these I did just a couple of weeks ago, and I finally addressed my fear of drawing teeth, which was incredibly high. Teeth and hands are something that I'm gonna start the new sketchbook with because they're so difficult, but I surprised myself because now that I draw really daily, like every single day, the hard subjects are not that hard to tackle. I can spot mistakes, I can correct them, but it started to work out. So these I'm kind of proud of. This was another 100 hats challenge. I did it twice. This one was, I think, this summer, before I did a more intense live workshop in this topic. So I always need a hard workout before these workshops because I do a lot of live demos, and when I stand in front of the group, I'm nervous like everybody is, and you just have to deliver. You have to draw quickly and you have to draw precisely. You can't disappoint the people that are watching. So putting some extra pressure on my drawing skill before the workshop really helps me out. So the 100 heads challenge is the best. If I have 10 days before a more intense workshop and I do 10 heads per day, then I'm not gonna fail. My hand is gonna be in a good shape. And these kind of lines is my daughter's doing again. For this 100 heads challenge, I did my own prompt list. The entire challenge is on my Patreon in real time. Every single day I filmed it, everything, you have it there as a drawing workout. I created a list of 100 photos. First were female portraits front view, then were female portraits 3/4 view. Male front view, that was very boring. I learned that front view of the portrait is the most boring of them all. 3/4 is much more fun, difficult but fun. They look much better. And then I did the male profile, which I love drawing profile. This is female profile. This one I particularly like. I noticed that even though my lines don't make proper sense, they do not have a proper order. They are not so orderly as you see with drawing artists. They have very orderly hatching. This is very chaotic, but still, maybe it's just me, but I see them still less chaotic than before, and that they have some sort of dynamics. The sketch stopped looking all that chaotic, and even though lines are chaotic as a whole, it makes dynamic sense. I don't know if that makes sense to you. This is different type of chaotic than it was before. Elder female was the prompt for these 10 days, and it was any type of view, even with green. This one had a very strong makeup, so I used colored pencil. One of my favorite sketches. This one was particularly great. If you don't have to care about orderly hatching, then you are, well, I am very quickly finished with your sketch, which I really utilize, because if there's one thing in my life that I like, it's time and energy. So if my sketch can be 5 minutes, then that works. That will ensure that I will keep on practicing. Anything more than 5 minutes is not doable. So older male portrait, which went surprisingly well and was surprisingly fun. If I am to compare what I've been painting and drawing for years, and these are these female portraits, compared to this, then that before was boring. This is a lot more fun. Bearded people was my prompt for day 9, so I found a bunch of references with beards and with mustaches, and I drew these. These two probably are my favorites, and this one as well. This was Robin Williams, but you probably can't tell because I still have troubles with likeness. I'm gonna do 100 heads challenge next year, and definitely that's gonna be actors and famous people, so that I really am focused on delivering on the likeness. And then 10 were people with glasses. So glasses were one element that I found difficult in drawing. Put them into perspective and incorporate them into the portrait, and I had fun. This was no boring page. More drawings, very spontaneous, with Pinterest, probably on the go, on a train to Prague or something. That line that I started to use before, I don't know where you can find here, that outline that I started to use previously, I'm doing now with colored pencils, just to play around with what I already created. That element enhances the drawing instantly, makes it more dynamic. I like that style. I don't do it with painting, but I like to do this in my sketchbook. Here was some combination of graphite pencils and colored pencils combined in a very weird way, very free, very messy. This also, I think I have this one as a drawing workout on my Patreon. This was combining every single medium that I had on my table, and I didn't draw for a week or so before this one, so it's horrible. I hate this drawing. These guys were very quick and more satisfying. This was live demo. These were my explanations on how to quickly capture the face during a live portrait workshop. These are more neat drawings, but not long. This is 15 or 20 minutes each, and this was just my regular practice, and still not the last page, but some of the drawings that I did during recent vacations. This is Last Emma. And my last page, I even draw on the cover, because Just wanted to cover every bit of this sketchbook with sketches while I didn't still have the new one. This entire page I filmed and I put it as a new drawing workout on my Patreon. You can find it there. This is the end of my sketchbook. And it's also the end of 2023, so my new sketchbook is gonna be November 2023 up until, I don't know, hope to finish it in 2024. These days I draw every single day. When I don't draw, I just feel incomplete. That habit became like brushing my teeth, and I do it with no judgment anymore. I don't try to focus on making that sketch pretty. I just need to draw something, anything. If I don't have a reference nearby, then I'm just gonna draw my own hand or something. And I'm glad that it is this way because it calms me down. I think that the skill progressed during the past 5 years. I could give you a long list of stuff that I don't feel like I have a handle on and that I need to practice. Drawing skill is for life. It's not something that you learn and it's finished. For me, this is a way of observing the world around me, and I'm just glad that I have this in my life. If there is a message here, then it is try to work through that initial phase that is not comfortable for anybody. And please don't think that you're incapable of drawing, because I do not think like I have a particular talent. It's more about this is the stuff that I want to be doing. I'm convinced 100% that just like how you can learn how to write in school, then you can learn how to draw, because I think it might just be the same skill. It's just the drawing skill is not as required in life as writing. So, did I find my style? I didn't invent my style, even though I really tried hard to invent my style. But in the end, there is a way that you personally capture the things that you see in real life, and that is ultimately your style. So I don't think that we can choose the style as much as we already have a style, and by regular practice it will surface. That's very lame advice, but that's the kind of reality that I live in. Thank you so much for allowing me to show you my sketchbooks. I know it was a bit long, and I will see you, maybe I will not see you in a year. Bye!